All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mike Premier Business Radio program. I'm your host, Mike King. I appreciate you being here with me. The views expressed here are mine. I have no connection to, support of, agreement with any other host, information or ads on the station. I don't work for the stations. My programs just air here on a daily basis. You can follow me as our cutting edge show. We uplift the community and showcase RVA in a different way. So we're coming to you from the Better Business Bureau. You can follow me on social platforms at on the Mike RVA, as well as Mike King Biz. So we got the gentleman from Titan Property Advisors. But man, Barry Moore says, Mike, you got to talk to these guys because they're out there doing some amazing things. And what I do when my man Barry Moore says something like that, you got to make it happen. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mike. Nice to be here with you.
All righty. So I start off, it is a business show. So tell folks who you are and what you do.
We are Titan Property Advisors, boutique brokerage that just opened up a couple of months ago here in Richmond. The company consists right now of myself and my esteemed partner, Chris Francois, who's been a broker here in town for how long, Chris?
24 years.
24 years.
Yes.
You've seen markets up and down, sideways, and everything.
Yes.
All right, sir. How are we doing?
Always up.
Always up.
No.
I was ready to say, okay.
Our attitude is up.
The attitude is up. The market may be a little bit cattywampus right now. What made you, so people know you from the media business?
Yeah. I did 10 years here in TV and
radio.
10 years in radio and then 22 in television.
When Juan Conde said he was going to do something else and it turned into media, I think all heads did like, huh?
Yeah.
Was it always a desire for you to do that?
I fell into the broadcasting business. When I moved to Richmond to go to school, I was working in a restaurant. A guy was like, hey, you got a good voice. You ever think about being in radio? And he gave me a job at Power 93, which is what it was called back then. So I really lucked out. Within the first 10 months of being here in Richmond, I had a job in the radio.
Okay. Radio, go to TV.
Right. So in 90, I started in 89. In 99, I was 33 years old. My life was changing. Radio is a young man's game. I was thinking about how to transition out, because it wasn't fun anymore. The music changed, everything. Well, in 10 years, quite a bit changes in any
You had
business.
been to every concert. You had met every.
I'm an old 70s head. And, and then, gangster started coming around. And for me, I didn't understand it the way I think I needed to really be into it. But things just changed. So what I thought I'd do is use the notoriety that I had from radio to parlay it into something else. So I was going to sell houses. I was going to be a residential agent. But as I was going to real estate school at Moseley Flint, where Chris was an instructor, not for me, but in the early aughts, Channel 8 approached me with the idea that I'd work at Channel 8 and be an anchor there. Now, I'd worked at Channel 8 briefly as a weekend weather anchor in the early 90s for them, but quit that because I was working 2 jobs at once. It was too crazy. So I figured that what would happen is I'd sign a 3-year deal with 8, that I would be terrible, that they would fire me or not renew me, and then I could just go sell houses because that's what my plan was anyway. But the 3 years turned into 22 because I survived somehow.
You survived
and thrived.
What was the draw with real estate even back in those days?
I think the idea is that you're helping people. And I had a really great experience with an agent in town named Pat Foster, who then went on to work in Richmond's economic development office.
See, Dr. Danny, our friend Dr. Danny is right here. She just interviewed her.
Pat Foster is an amazing woman, and I'm sorry I haven't talked to her in as long as it's been. But Pat Foster told me, Juan, I don't sell houses. I show houses. People need houses. I just help them with the options. And that stayed with me in a way that I can't explain. So it took away a lot of the fear I think I had for being in the business or to enter the commercial side.
So when you go into the business, you see the man over here who is
Chris really is who you should be talking to.
Instructing. What is it when you see somebody who finds an interest and you see that person and they get the possibilities that being in real estate can offer? What's it feel like?
Yeah, I think what I saw as an instructor, because I would have 35 students in a class. I did a classroom instruction thing. The hope that they had maybe they were transitioning from another career, but I think it's hope to be independent, make money, and also it's a job where you're kind of in the public eye a little bit. You might have a billboard or you might have signage, and so your name's out there, and I think there's recognition. So a lot of people see it as an opportunity to do something different with their lives. very few people go into real estate out of high school, you know?
That is true.
Yeah,
People take some different roads to get to real estate. Everybody has a different story.
yeah. They might be a salesman, they might be a teacher, they might be, any number of industries, but it tends to be kind of a second career or an opportunity. So that's what I saw a lot when I saw students in front of me, and I would have 35, every week. So I think over 3 years I was at Mosley Flint, saw about 1,000 people come in front of me, and a lot of them went and got their license, and maybe they hung it with someone, and some people were really successful. So not everybody is it right for, because it's not as easy as it seems. A lot of people think, oh, I can sell
It
houses.
seems sexy and glamorous.
Yeah,
it does.
and it's not as easy as that, but because it's very competitive. In Richmond, I think when I started 25 years ago, there were probably 3,500 realtors, then it hit 4,000. Now it's at 5,000 in the Richmond metropolitan area. So it's even increased in the number of practitioners and firms and all that. So
for being a good real estate agent, what are a couple of things that a person needs to have?
I'm pretty new, so I'm going to defer to Chris. I know what I think I need.
Well, depending on whether you sell houses and you're in residential, let's say what we'd say brokerage, you broker transitions, maybe you represent sellers or buyers. Obviously, buyer brokerage has really taken hold in the 90s and to today. So it's been about 25, 30 years. Or commercial, which is what we do. Commercial is very different in that you're dealing with businesses and what are their needs. And it might be that they're an office type business or service. It might be that they're retail, it might be that they're, distribution, which would be like warehouse. So even those sectors and the differences there are very different than selling houses. But even selling houses, if you're selling, $200,000 houses or a $500,000 house or $1 million, those are all different too. It's different types of clients, different type of needs. So I think what you bring to the table in terms of, let's say characteristics or traits, you just have to be likable person. I think in any sales job, that's the case. You have to know about your product, the properties. So you have to have some people skills, of course. So we always say it's, people, properties, and process. And the process of buying and selling a home, having it close, all that stuff, having tie into the communities of people that are part of that process, because it's appraisers and inspectors and bankers, and it's not just, hey, I sell a home. So, but commercial, little different animal. A lot of people don't realize a lot more of it is about leasing space.
So getting to leasing space. So on the mic, we're here with the guy from Titan. What did the pandemic do? So all of a sudden, even in buildings where we're in, or buildings were full, or people perceived them to be full, pandemic happens, and then the buildings are empty. And now you still see a lot of empty spaces. What has that done to the commercial market?
It's changed things, and we're still figuring it out because we're still in it. We just talked about office. Obviously, people come into offices, and that changed because people were like, hey, we're going to stay home, or maybe we're going to come in a couple days a week. I mean, still people are thinking, are we going to work remotely or hybrid, or are we all going to just come back and it's going to get back to normal? We're humans, and we like to kind of collaborate and be involved and see people. And even though we've got things like Zoom and other things that we've all learned about, that's been the big sector that's been affected. Office. Retail obviously has been majorly affected as well. Restaurants, we know, but there are workarounds. We've had delivery and pickup and doing some things to try to bring things back. The sector that's gone crazy is warehouse or distribution. That is like the hottest sector. It's gone up. The prices of renting it has gone up. The demand, obviously. There's multifamily people know about, which kind of crosses over into residential and commercial.
Apartment buildings.
So apartment buildings and industrial, those two sectors are the ones that have gone crazy up during the
Explain why industrial and warehouse is hot. Is that a function of the distribution networks established by companies like Amazon that are doing deliveries, or was it pandemic related also?
I think it's both, because that was happening as a trend where the big distribution centers and the big companies that are asking for the space. But then the pandemic definitely changed things, and people were like, wow, warehouse is less expensive to rent. So how can we use these spaces, and a lot of them are called flex, they're flexible, right? You can do office and warehouse, even retail, you can sell stuff out of these things. 3 times less expensive. But now during the pandemic, it's gone up so dramatically that it's getting close to office space and even retail space in terms of rent in 2 years, 2.5 years.
So one goes up, the other goes down.
But don't you have to go further out? There's only so much space for warehouse space. So what does that do for you guys? And how do you get in front of commercial folks who need space, whether it's office space, retail space? What's the process there? Is it different than buying and selling homes? Because I know some people in the commercial market, their mindset is a lot different than home buyers.
You want to take that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what you do, but generally brokerage is bringing the same thing. It could be landlords and tenants together, buyers and sellers together. So a lot of things that we have to do that are different from people who sell homes is we have to go out to those businesses and meet them, knock on doors, introduce ourselves, leave a card, say what our services are. If you ever have a need, their need might be 1.5 years from now.
You're playing the long game.
Yeah, you're not playing the short game. Hey, you want to sell your house now? Have you ever thought about you're trying to get them to sell a house or buy a house or whatever? So that's definitely different. But you're going to these properties. You go to, you learn about the property that the person is in, the company is in. So you learn everything about that. So you fill your head up with that. So you have knowledge. So when you go to the next person, you're like, hey, I just saw this property over here. Have you ever thought about going over here? And you can tell when people are unhappy or they don't like their landlord, or they kind of give you feedback on, oh, I'd like a better location. I'd like a second location. So the conversation starts there and then you go from there. But it is a long game process, and it's definitely different from selling houses.
You're building different networks. In
Okay.
residential, you're building networks of perhaps family members, my uncle, my aunt, my cousin, my cousin's cousin. My sister's relocating from LA, coming back here, and they turn to you because they have that relationship established. In this case, your referrals are coming from other businesses. And then also there's a lot more prospecting directly to businesses, whether you're on the tenant rep side or the landlord website, at least in leasing.
One of the folks from Titan Property Advisors here with us. So getting ready to launch Titan, what was it going to be different about your firm than other firms that you guys see out there?
Us, man. Us, Mike.
The man said it.
Us.
Us.
It's
like, Mike, why are you going to ask ridiculous questions?
Why,
especially to a man
Yeah.
who was an expert at interviewing.
yeah, I think
Sorry.
I'll defer to you so I don't brag my way into a corner here.
Well, I mean, any company is going to say, hey, we have the best people, we have the best company, we have the, but I think when you're first starting out, you don't have that. You don't have, hey, we've been in business for 20 years. It's more like, what do we bring to the table that's different? What do we bring to the table that's different from another company? It is us that we will, we're not a big corporation, so we have some time to sit down with you to learn about your business. We probably will learn about your business before we meet you. Instead of cold calling, we're going to try to make it a warm call. We're going to already know some things so that when we ask questions, we kind of know the answers already a little bit, or we learn more because you don't always know, from research or you're doing stuff on the internet. So I think, you get your, you just kind of dive into it. Titan Property Advisors, we started really 6 months ago. So right now we're cultivating relationships that probably 2-3 years down the road will mean something. In the short run, we're just trying to pay the bills.
Yeah, we're working some deals, but yeah,
we're doing some deals, and we're getting relations with other brokers in town as well.
Can I jump in on you?
Yeah.
I think for us, Mike, frankly, the difference with Titan is that you have somebody who has an intimate knowledge of the market from being in media for 30 years and television specifically for 22. So I have contacts and relationships, and and my
somebody.
fingers in a lot of different things. And people are receptive to me because they feel like they know me. So the way that you might have a barrier when you first meet someone, well, it's a new thing. I might have been in your house for the last 10 years at nighttime, right? Or with you in bed at 11:30, depending on how you want to do it. So that is a plus for us because people have familiarity with me. What I lack is experience. And that Chris has in oodles. And we should also mention this. Chris and I are childhood friends. We met as teenagers when we lived in Alexandria together. So we know who we are, how we work, what we do. He has experience and fantastic context over his 24 years in the business here in town, longer, and I have a forward face that people recognize. So that's a pretty hard combination.
That's a good combination to put
right.
together.
Each of our weaknesses is accented by the other's strength, I think.
What's the market look like, though, or not just the market, but Richmond now, as opposed to say 20 years ago, from a business standpoint?
I mean, we've seen, some growth and development that we kind of expected to be happening.
You expect in certain
before,
areas.
And now it's happening very dramatically
Mhm.
over the last, let's say, 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
We were driving around the other night, and we're always driving around, looking at properties, and we're just kind of always amazed at how things have changed because, we have been here since late 80s, early 90s.
Mhm.
We originally came from Alexandria. We grew up there and came to Richmond, I went to VCU, and it's dramatic. You think about the sub-markets that have kind of grown and things are happening. Richmond, I think in the 90s, people are like, why hasn't it happened yet? Why aren't we seeing the growth of other cities that are our size,
Mhm.
but now our size, but it's now happening.
When I look at it, I came here in 2014.
Mhm.
From 2014, this city looks a lot different.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time, and because I've always been on the business side, places couldn't get out of Scotch Edition fast enough.
Mhm.
They were just ready to go. That place was a graveyard. Now
Now it's the hottest.
it's the hottest
sub-market.
place. And now when you look at real estate people, nonprofits can't afford to stay there
Mhm.
because the prices have gone up. When you look at like a Whole Street,
Sure.
and
Wall Street still has quite a ways to go too, don't?
and I'm
Yeah.
looking like down at the bottom, I'm like, in just a few years,
Manchester.
Yes.
you
is in the
see,
bottom.
when I interviewed the mayor a while back, he said you can tell the viability of a city by cranes in the sky.
Mhm.
And so now we're riding around looking at office space. So give our listeners an idea, since this is the business radio show around, an area for office space that you think is good for, whether it's warehousing or retail space, some gems that people may not know about.
There is.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we're actually in Scott's Edition, by the way.
Mhm.
Our
Oh, so you guys
offices.
got it like that.
Yeah.
I understand.
Um,
Everybody can't be there.
Right. And I think everybody can. Scott's Edition is expensive, but everything's expensive now.
That is true.
I don't know about area of town. I mean, Manchester is kind of the hot place right now where there's a lot of stuff being built and a lot of commercial businesses need to serve those, apartment buildings and all that people live there. We were driving along Hull
Mhm.
Street and looking at a lot of the changes as well. Areas, I think, anywhere where there are people, anywhere or in residential. If you look at all the retail corridors, whether it's Broad Street or Midlothian or Mechanicsville or Hull Street, or, there's just so many different places that just keep going and going, and the development keeps going. So one place that's pretty close to us is an area, I mean, if everyone knows Willow Lawn, it was
Right.
one of the first malls and it's been redone over and over again. But Willow Lawn's going to change. In that area there that you'll see, it's already happening. The office buildings that were there are going to turn into apartment buildings.
I've heard that. The one place that I did notice when I got here, everyone said Regency was the place. It was the mall.
Mhm.
And when I got here, like, this place is dead. They're gonna just tear it down.
Mhm.
Next thing you know,
They're redeveloping.
exactly. It is because people don't realize from a business standpoint. And when I talk to whether it's economic development, I just talked to the folks from Greater Richmond Partnership, and we did a segment on Lego.
Mm.
And they're like, when you see, and when I even talked to Chris Winslow,
Mhm.
everybody in the country is saying, where's Chesterfield? Like, how did they pull off this deal? And then people said, because the state is business friendly. Businesses want to come here and do. Entrepreneurship is up. So what you guys are doing out there, people want and need it. Brooklyn Park Boulevard, is that one another one that's kind of hot?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
has been. There's been a lot of activity, and it takes some time for it to come to fruition. But when we were driving around downtown, 8th and Main, which 7th to 12th Street was like what's called the financial district for a long time downtown. All the banks were down there, and of course the North Carolina banks bought them out, so there was consolidation. But we were looking at corners, and we were looking at, okay, this was an office building, an office building, an office building. They're all apartment buildings now. They're expecting, at least the market is, that people are going to live downtown. I don't know whether they're going to work downtown. Some will, But downtown where you saw all those office buildings and parking garages, or whatever, it's turning into apartments. And that's the difference. You were talking about the pandemic, how that's changing. Less office space will be needed. So how do we convert these buildings? We're going to turn them into apartment buildings.
There you go, gentlemen. So on the mic, Mike, we're here at the Better Business Bureau. A shout out to my man Barry Moore. As I always say, he is the reason that we're here. He is a sponsor of the program. As I always say, the microphone ain't free, plus my grandkids need stuff. So make sure you don't laugh. They do. So
Christmas is coming, Pop.
Exactly. And it only gets worse. So we're here talking at the Better Business Bureau. Make sure that you guys check out the Better Business Bureau and all the great things that they're doing. Titan is here with us. How can people find you guys out there, gentlemen?
TitanPropertyAdvisors.com. We have a website. Our phone number is catchy and easy, 804-49-LEASE. And we love to work with businesses both ways, both landlords who are looking to lease their spaces. We can list your stuff for you. And we do tenant rep as well, which I really like, because a lot of business, you would never go buy a house today without an agent on your side, but business owners very frequently go into these negotiations with landlords solo. And I'm not saying you can't make a good deal for yourself, but we make it easier and you don't have to pay us. It's paid by the landlord.
Oh,
Now, listen, now you want to buy the grandkids a house. That's cool. We suggest a little commercial property, Mike.
I could tell this man has been around the media business for a while, because that's a sales pitch right there.
I put you on the hook tonight.
That is among the guests. On the mic is Mike, the gentleman from Titan Property Advisors are here. Make sure you check them out, Barry Moore. You were right. We had a great time here today. On the mic is Mike, ESPN Richmond and Choice 105.3, as well as International Business Radio. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks now.